something. She's got a spine of steel. Yes. And she's also been a black woman in America a very long time, so none of this is new to her. We're mad because we're tired of it. We're tired for her. But we're mad for her.
So that right there is actress Yvette Nicole Brown, along with a lady called Kym Whitley, and they are running defense for Mayor Karen Bass because she's a black woman. Now, you guys might remember, and you might actually like Yvette Nicole Brown from her role on the TV series Community, but make no mistake about it, what she's doing right here is ridiculous and disgusting, and ironically, in her attempt to defend Karen Bass from the evil white racism that apparently is the major issue right now in the city of Los Angeles, she's actually putting up a more racist idea than anyone out there that's actually criticizing Karen Bass, because essentially the core of her argument is as follows. Karen Bass is a black woman, therefore you shouldn't criticize her, because I guess you can't expect any level of competence from a black woman that happens to be the mayor of Los Angeles. The reason I criticize Karen Bass is because I do expect you to be able to do your job regardless of your race, regardless of your sex, but apparently that is not a standard that is held by Yvette Nicole Brown or this other woman. In addition to that, she also says that Karen Bass has a spine of steel. She's such a strong woman because she's essentially been tempered by being a black woman in the United States of America. And she's so strong, in fact, that when you look at her being confronted by a single reporter in an airport while she was flying back to Ghana, she was like a deer in headlights and couldn't answer any questions at all whatsoever.
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them? Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
Again, my assertion is as follows. If you think this is the best that you can get from a black woman in a position of power, you happen to be the racist. You happen to be the problem. You happen to be the issue. I actually expect her to perform the regular, ordinary duties as mayor that she should, because that's the job that she was elected to do. But apparently, according to Yvette Nicole Brown, you can't expect that because black woman. And that's what we're going to talk about today. All these different various attempts in order to obfuscate responsibility, and specifically the ones that highlight race and sex as a way to, again, avoid that responsibility. But before we get into that, I will remind you there are real-world consequences to the failures of Democrats. My friend Devin Tracy, his parents lost their family home in these fires, and honestly, they're just trying to rebuild their lives, so this is why Devin is running a fundraiser for his parents, and why I'm supporting that. Now, if you're a fan of Devin, please donate if you can donate, but to be clear, if you can't donate, then that's totally fine. If you don't want to donate to Devin for whatever reason, that is also totally fine. I just want to help out a friend. I want to help out his family, but I understand if you are incapable or unwilling. Again, no pressure, but let's get back into this. So look, whenever I'm covering these kind of videos, I try to give the people involved a little bit of grace and highlight some of their decent points. And apparently, Malibu is actually a separate city from the city of Los Angeles that Karen Bass is not the mayor of. So to the extent that she is being criticized for the goings on in the local government over in Malibu, that's perfectly fine to point out that she shouldn't be criticized for that. But to be clear, the main location of the fires, the most devastating impact of the fires, happens to be the Palisades. The Palisades were so bad due to poor local management. And despite the fact that Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass are in full cover your ass mode, this is obvious to anyone who is paying attention. In fact, we all know that they had a shortage of water. It wasn't coming out of the fire hydrants. And yet Gavin Newsom, Gavin Newscum, if you will, has decided to run a full PR campaign, essentially trying to obfuscate responsibility for that by first saying all the reservoirs were full, only to be confronted about this and then saying he ordered into an investigation why that local reservoir was empty.
President-elect Trump has blamed you for this crisis. He called you incompetent. What's your response?
Well, I called for him to come out, take a look for himself. We want to do it in the spirit of an open hand, not a closed fist. He's the president-elect. I respect the office. We have a president of the United States that within 36 hours provided a major disaster declaration over a text. We had support from the president of the United States, Joe Biden, with 100% reimbursement, all the resources you could hope for or imagine, constant communication. I'd like to extend that to the president-elect. I don't know what he's referring to when he talks about the Delta smelt in reservoirs. The reservoirs are completely full, the state reservoirs here in Southern California. That mis and disinformation, I don't think advantages or aids any of us. Responding to Donald Trump's insults, we would spend another month. I'm very familiar with them. Every elected official that he disagrees with, very familiar with them.
We do know, though, from reporting here locally that one reservoir that serves the Palisades was not full.
And that's exactly what triggered my desire to get the investigation to understand what was happening with that local reservoir.
Now, it turns out the reason why this reservoir, which held 117 million gallons of water, was empty is because of a tear in the cover that was discovered in February of 2024, almost 11 months ago. Now, this cover tear repair should have taken about a week, but of course, we're almost a full year in, and it has not gotten done because Los Angeles is going to Los Angeles, and California is going to California. Now, the backup system for this were 3 1 million gallon water tanks. This is what the Palisades firefighters had easy access to during the course of this blaze, and Gavin Newsom, again being the scumbag that he is, has decided, while he's telling everybody else to not politicize this, to go after Elon Musk for calling out the fact that they ran out of water by playing this out of context clip of a firefighter briefing Elon Musk saying that no system would have been able to nerf this blaze.
So, all right, what about water availability? Was water availability, I understand that was like not an issue in Malibu, is that correct?
Was it water?
Well, yeah.
So there was water. We have several reservoirs that Encinos that we use a lot. Now, just an example, if we have one building burning, we could flow 1,000 gallons a minute on that one building with the hose lays that we put in to stop it. You can imagine 1,000 gallons per house we couldn't do, right? So the amount of water we're flowing, there really is no water system that's going to keep that pace. So we have to bring in water tenders, which are these big tank water tanks that, 2,500, 3,000 gallon trucks, and they'll come in. And that's what we have to do to compensate. So they park out there, do it. DWP did a great job. They brought in big water trucks for us, and we use them as basically mobile hydrants.
All right.
Right, and then we have our own agency as well that has water tenders.
Okay. My understanding is that like along the, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, in Malibu along the coast there was no shortage of water. In the Palisades there was a shortage of water at a certain point, or is that not accurate?
Well, we were flowing just an amount of water that the system couldn't overbear. We're just overbearing, just because of how much water these firefighters were utilizing.
Okay. All right.
Now look, to a certain extent, this is true. Obviously, the Palisades fire was at a scale that had never been seen before in the city of Los Angeles, so it is true that no water system in existence would have been able to put out all of the fires and prevent all of the damages. But the thing that Gavin Newsom is trying to get you to ignore with that particular tweet, with that particular video, is that there is a huge gulf between all of the fires being put out immediately and, of course, all of the homes being saved and what we have now, which appears to be maximum destruction in the Palisades. And the fact of the matter is, nobody's making the case that had that reservoir been online, everything could have been saved and the whole fire could have been put out almost immediately. What we are arguing is simple, basic, and logical, because when that 117 million gallon water reservoir went offline, they had 3 backups. Those 3 backups held 1 million gallons of water each, which means that if you actually fix the reservoir, if you actually did that 1 week repair in a nice normal amount of time, hell, if it even took you 6 months to do that 1 week repair, then you would have had 40 times the water available to those firefighters than they actually had. So all these tricks and all this misinformation coming out from Bass and coming out from Newsom about how, oh, the water pressure was just too low for the hydrants, we didn't run out of water, is ridiculous, because guess what increases water pressure? Increase volume of water, and they left basically 40x the water on the table because California is a horribly governed state. Now, in addition to the fact that Karen Bass has been proven to be wholly incompetent, which again, apparently we're supposed to excuse that because she's a black woman, essentially Yvette Nicole Brown and all these different lefties are running the super mayor defense for her.
Because everybody want to say they little sideways stuff, and then now we got to sit and try to remember what y'all saying and then say something back just to tell the residents or show them that we are doing what's right. Because y'all got false narratives out there, and y'all should be ashamed of yourself. Y'all black. Y'all are black. And y'all sitting up here beating and attacking on a black woman that's in power. Y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. All the stuff that y'all did to get people to come to our community, to just diss and down our community. Shame on y'all.
We've also seen criticism of Caruso, which is the candidate that ran against Karen Bass in the 2022 mayoral election and narrowly lost to her because he was able to save his own properties. However, the criticism of Caruso could not be more ridiculous.
We're right by the Palisades Villages, which is owned by Rick Caruso, Rick Caruso joins us now live on the phone. Rick, thanks so much for being with us. What are you seeing in terms of your property tonight?
Well, hi, Alex. Thanks for covering this so well. Listen, it's a disaster to the 100th degree. It's beyond anything I think any of us could have ever imagined. But my heart goes out, obviously, to the people with their homes, and I'm watching the small businesses around us go up in flames. This is people's livelihoods, so it's devastating. But what is most concerning to me is our first responders and our firefighters who are trying to battle this. There's no water in the Palisades. There's no water coming out of the fire hydrant.
So there's all these different various tweets about how Caruso should have saved the Palisades as a whole, and the fact that he hired private firefighters and stationed water tanks in and around his particular properties in order to put out the fires, and it worked, just shows how selfish these greedy capitalists actually are. But when you look a little deeper, what you realize is that the people of Los Angeles definitely should have elected Caruso. And by the way, even people like Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks endorsed Caruso and got criticized for daring to not back the black woman because Cenk wanted somebody who was competent in this position. Well, guess what? When Karen Bass flew out to Ghana in order to go to the inauguration of that president, Caruso was actually paying attention to the warnings about winds and fire risk. And in fact, 2 days prior to Bass flying out to Ghana for her trip on the taxpayer dime, Caruso actually had already hired and positioned these private firefighters around his Palisades properties, which by the way are the commercial properties, in order to protect said properties. So what we're actually talking about is a guy who wasn't even the mayor, didn't even have the detailed briefings that were available to the mayor, and instead had the information that was available to everyone and acted accordingly days prior to the actual mayor of Los Angeles even acknowledging that there was an issue. So essentially, the guy that they didn't elect was far more competent than the woman that they did elect. And Caruso, by the way, also accurately points out that the forests in the Palisades have not been tended to, the brush had not been cleared in probably decades in the multiple interviews that he's done about this.
This is an absolute mismanagement by the city. It's not the firefighters' fault, but it's by the city. And I'm going to be very honest. We've got a mayor that's out of the country, and we've got a city that's burning, and there's no resources to put out fires. So if you look at your pictures, you don't see the firefighters there because there's nothing they can do. And it looks like we're in a third world country here. Mm-hmm. And we've got a lot of tough questions that we need to ask the mayor and the city council and our representatives and the county representatives. Why didn't you work to mitigate this? What was your brush mitigation program? I heard you earlier talking about it's been dry because there hasn't been rain. That's not the biggest problem here. The brush up in these hills that are controlled by the city and the county, I would bet you that if they haven't been handled, mitigated, pruned, removed for probably 30 or 40 years. This was a disaster waiting to happen. And what's predictable is preventable.
Now, to be 100% clear, Karen Bass had all the information that she needed in order to deal with this crisis in a much better way. Gavin Newsom was warned repeatedly about forest management, and of course, he did nothing except for lie about forest management. Again, according to a 2021 article from NPR, he was greatly overestimating the amount of acres that they were tending to, claiming they were doing around 90,000, when in reality, they had only done 11,000 acres. Everything they needed to be able to function properly was available to them at the time of the fire starting. These were mistakes that were made years in advance, bad governance decisions, again, from years in advance, that they could have altered in order to have better results. But instead, they decided not to do so because they know the media won't press the Democrats because they got the magic D next to their name. They believe that Gavin Newsom is a presidential candidate, and they have to protect Karen Bass because she's a black woman that's in power. But in reality, what Caruso ended up proving is that white competence beats black girl magic each and every day and twice on Sunday, and 100 times when there's a fire in and around your area, because he was able to foresee and defend his own properties. And all the criticism about how Caruso should have defended all of the Palisades, the guy doesn't have unlimited money. The guy doesn't have access to all these different various water tankers, again, to an unlimited proportion. And again, the residents of the city of Los Angeles didn't elect them. If you want his competence in terms of leadership, you should have voted for him. And I know it was a narrow election, but the fact of the matter is, this guy clearly and obviously should have been the mayor. He knew what was going on. He knew how to respond. He's been pointing out these issues for a very long time. And he even decided to very deceptively change from Republican to Democrat just prior to the election. So all these dopes in Los Angeles could feel like they were still technically electing a Democrat, even though, again, we have the competence of Republican local governance. And this is the thing. Ever since Hurricane Katrina and George Bush got absolutely destroyed for his response to that, Republicans have basically been put on notice that any kind of natural disaster could be a career-ending event for said Republicans. And this is why you see such hyper-competence in these instances in the state of Florida from people like Ron DeSantis. However, the same scorn, the same scrutiny, the same level of accountability, Democrats are not subject to. And as long as they elect apparently minorities to those positions in office, they're able to skirt responsibility even further, because you'll have all these different various people say, oh my God, you can't expect a black woman to be able to handle something that a white guy that's not even the mayor would be able to foresee. That's absolutely crazy. And again, I will just point out that these people are the ones racializing this. These people are the ones saying that you can't expect anything from a black woman that happens to be the mayor of a major city, and it's absurd. It's insane. And by the way, we see the same thing time and time again across all our major cities. Eric Adams plays the race card when he gets investigated for corruption in the city of New York having to do with the Turkish government. Brandon Johnson plays the race card nonstop. In fact, his whole hand is just the race card. That's his only move. That's all he does. And he does it for absolutely everything. It's madness. It's insane. Everybody should catch on to it. And the fact of the matter is, I have no problem with black politicians actually being in government, but as long as we hold them to the same level of account as white politicians, as white male politicians, because guess what? It's the same job, and you have to prove that you're able to do the same job. And by the way, this attitude of different standards for different people, again, trickles down throughout the whole course of the system. There is a famous clip that I'm going to keep playing each and every time of somebody who is an assistant fire chief in the LA Fire Department saying that it's not her fault that she can't carry your husband out of a blaze because he was dumb enough to get himself in that position in the first place.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Now that stupid ass video closes by saying just 5% of the LA Fire Department are women. And honestly, I don't give a damn if it's 1%. I don't give a damn if it's 0%, because the qualifications to be a firefighter are the qualifications to be a firefighter. If you have a woman that has the physical requirements in order to meet that, I'm totally on board with her being in the fire department. It does not matter to me, but I'm not in favor of lowering standards or going out of your way to spend money that could be spent on, I don't know, fire mitigation tactics in order to recruit women, even though we know based on the physical differences between men and women that there are going to just be less people that are qualified to do the job. On top of that, there are less women who want to do the job. People in certain sexes tend towards certain professions. It is not a big deal, and it's not something that you need to override. It's not something you need to waste money on in order to supposedly correct, but this is the mindset of the city of Los Angeles. DEI and no accountability. And again, I will point out that it is the left that is racializing this in order to defend Karen Bass, because every criticism that I have for Karen Bass, guess what? I have a tenfold additional criticism for Gavin Newsom, who happens to be a straight white male, because Gavin Newsom is an absolutely horrible governor. He's been in office longer. And by the way, he was the lieutenant governor prior to being the governor of California, and he's ignored every single warning, every single piece of advice about, actually managing the forest, about actually building water systems. And I will also point out that the Newsom administration was celebrating the fact that they were going to potentially approve all of the permits by the end of 2024 for water storage that was voted on and paid for back in 2014 when Republicans were calling them out for how long it was taking. And then they said we're going to maybe break ground in 2025 and we might be done in 5 to 7 years with that particular project. That is insane. That site has been designated as adequate to store water since the Eisenhower administration. They voted to pay for it back in 2014, and now we're in 2025 and they still haven't broken ground on that. The red tape in California is absolutely nuts. It needs to be cut through. They need to fix this, but Gavin Newsom is completely incompetent, and so incompetent that Jerry Brown, who's the head of the project, by the way, no relation to the former governor Jerry Brown, to which Gavin was the lieutenant governor, is celebrating that maybe they'll be done 7 years from now with this project if they're finally able to break ground in 2025. Absurd. Madness at every level. But again, we're supposed to ignore it because Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom might be a good presidential candidate for them in 2028. And Karen Bass, black woman, oh my God, what an innocent baby angel. We can't actually expect her to do the job of Los Angeles mayor just because she was elected as the Los Angeles mayor. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like the video, show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the craziness that is being put forward by the left. Till next time.